And so therein lie our challenges. Now, how has this happened? High costs, laborization, the laborization of the workforce, which served a very vital role in the American economy. It's how we created not only a middle class for my parents, who were able to work in manufacturing types of jobs in the city of Newark and earn enough of a wage to be able to afford to be homeowners, and to tell me as a child when my dad would say, my job, Dad, I want to see where you work. My job, he'd say, his job is I go to work and make the money. Your job is to get an education so you never have to do this, right? And unions had a big part in that, because without the unions, people weren't being paid a fair wage. I'm talking back when there were way before that. But then when we reach the point that people who've worked, I'm not talking about private unions, but in public unions for government, and you're able to work for 20 years and retire at the age of 50 with $60,000 a year in pay and all of your benefits for life, we can't afford that. That starts to look like Greece, right? So there's all different sides to this problem. Very complex problem. Very complex problem. And technology, we hear all of this talk about bringing manufacturing back to America. Here's what I'm going to tell you. It's happening. It is surely happening right now. Companies are leaving China because they're fed up with all of the challenges over there, not to mention the industrial espionage, where you go there to manufacture a product and the government is taking all your trade secrets and spying on you and using it to create a competitor that's a government-owned company that can do it for less than you. Companies are leaving there. But here's the deal. When they come back, these are technology-driven manufacturing jobs where you need one person to every 10 compared to what it took before. Because the human's job now is to go down the line and just squeeze a little drop of oil into the robotic assembly lines. So yes, manufacturing is coming back. No, it's not going to put people back to work in large numbers. The other piece to this is that as this plays out, as income no longer rises like we've been accustomed to, what's next is you need to look for efficiencies as a household. You need to say, okay, so where can I cut and still maintain my lifestyle? I'll give you the easiest way to do it. Live in a smaller place and leave the outer ring suburbs and rural areas and live in a place where you can get rid of your car. And you can walk or take a bus or take a train to work. Let me give you the math on that. If you take a look at the average cost of car ownership in a year, all in, what you pay to maintain it, what you pay for insurance, what you lose in terms of depreciation, because it's a depreciating asset, that's a cost to you, right? Because someday you're going to have to sell it and get another one. The cost of owning a car is equal to the principal and interest on $150,000 worth of mortgage borrowing. So if you decide to live in a smaller place that's close to your job where you can take the train, in a two-person household, and one person can do that, the other person is going to still drive, and you can get rid of one car, you've added $150,000 of purchasing power to your mortgage qualification. And that's where we go from here. And that's only because we're just a younger version of Europe. You may not like it, but that's what we are. And every society and every economy reaches the point that it becomes inefficient, it becomes costly, it becomes top-heavy. Labor rates, taxation rates go higher and higher. The more that people can't find work, the more entitlements that you need to give them, because you want everybody to be able to live a decent life. That's what we want. And with that, people need to move to a European model for our housing market and our economies, and that's where we're heading. Standard of living is falling. 60% of baby boomers have underfunded retirement accounts. Generation Y, who are today's baby boomers, right? People age in the baby boomer turning age 65 at a rate of 10,000 a day. People in Generation Y are turning age 35 at a rate of 11,000 a day. It was the next baby boom. That's why they're sometimes called the echo boom. The problem is that they don't make enough to buy the houses that you want to sell. In addition to that, not only can they not afford it, in addition to that, birth rates have fallen so dramatically that across America, now hold on to your hats for this one, Across America, 70% of all households have no children under the age of 18. Take a moment to absorb that. 70%, 68%, I'm rounding. 70 is easier to wrap your heads around. 70% of all households have no children under the age of 18 living at home. I needed to add that in. And by the way, if your 30-year-old is still living and sleeping in their bedroom, they're not a child. That's not a child. You've got a boarder. You've got a boarder who's probably not paying rent. So, if 70% of households are childless, no children living at home under the age of 18, and if the younger generation needs smaller spaces and doesn't want to have to drive 45 minutes to get to their jobs, who's going to buy all the houses that baby boomers will be selling in the next 5 years? I can tell you there won't be enough. There will be a decline in price. In the top half of the luxury suburban markets, there will be. There will be. There will be more sellers than buyers, and we understand supply and demand better than anyone. Oil is the other compelling reason. We've talked about it. $3.50 a gallon, $4 a gallon rebalances all this. Well, instead of going out to Hunterdon County or Warren County where I can get a house for cheaper, or better yet, let's just go all the way in and buy a house across the river in Pennsylvania, and I'll drive an hour to get to work every day in each direction. Doesn't pencil at $4 a gallon. I can tell you that you're spending more than you're saving. European model. Also, companies are getting out of the suburbs. It's happening in Chicago. It's happening in California. It's happening everywhere across America. It's especially happening in New Jersey. Do you know why? A couple of reasons, but the main reason is that people who are in their 30s, they are the new hotshots of business, and they don't want to live out there. They want to live in, now, forgive me if you're not from New Jersey, but because I'm going to use towns that you won't know, but they want to live in hip, walkable downtown places with lifestyle and transportation that are close to jobs. They want to live in Hoboken, New Jersey City. That would be a good answer, an example of that. And those types of centers are building up everywhere. In the town of Metuchen, right here in New Jersey in Middlesex County, they're planning a major downtown redevelopment, which is going to bring hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of condominiums and luxury apartments geared towards young people right adjacent to the train station, which will connect to Newark, where Panasonic is moving 1,000 jobs from here to there. You find efficiencies, and it's happening across the country. UBS is going to be moving from Stanford back to Manhattan. Why? Because they can't get the 30-year-old hotshot bankers to want to live up there in the suburbs. They're not doing it. 5 o'clock, I need to have somewhere to have fun. Not going to a suburb where they roll up the sidewalks at night. Not that important to me. I'll live a simpler life, and in their view, a happier life. Okay, so with that, we are on, I think, the final slide. Here's my forecast. It gets better from here. The real estate markets continue to get some traction. The improvement will be much slower, much less in office and in retail because we're largely overbuilt. But as we start to see this reverse migration pattern, where the suburban sprawl model of the last 3 decades, people fleeing the cities because they wanted more wide open spaces with lower crime rates and better schools to raise their children, completely evaporates now. Because we don't have the children. School systems are going to need a lot fewer teachers 5 years from now. That's when I hear this thing in the debates, we need to hire 1 million teachers. I'm thinking, do you have any idea what's going on in the schools right now? Classrooms are starting to go empty in the lower grades because that's where it shows up first. As kids graduate up into higher grades and we have no one coming in to fill in the lower grades, do you have any idea how oversupplied we are with teachers given what we know about the demographics? That doesn't pencil out. So we're going to start to see this reverse migration of people moving back in closer. Let me give you an example. Downtown Cranford. Does anybody here know where Cranford is? Have you seen the redevelopment down there and all the apartments that have been built in the last 5 or 6 years? Major redevelopment, luxury apartments. Here's what's happening in Cranford today. 983 apartments right in the downtown area within walking distance to the train station. Out of the 983 apartments, 22 school children in the system. Why would we hire 1 million teachers? Makes no sense at all. Real estate recovery is going to slow down for the last couple of months in this year. Everybody's got their eyes on the elections. More importantly, the fiscal cliff. We've seen stagnation in the luxury housing markets, primarily because high-income earners, there's no question about it, they're going to take it on the chin. Even if the Bush tax cuts are extended, they're going to have to pay more. And if the cuts extend and there's no middle ground that's established, high-income earners, and the discussion is that any household, any individual that earns over 200 or a household that earns over 250 is, by definition, a wealthy household. And listen, I get that number. I understand that on a national scale, because if you talk $250,000 a year to somebody who lives in a suburb of Texas or somebody who lives in Mississippi or Nebraska, they say, wow, that's a lot of money. But I'm going to tell you, $200,000 a year for a salary here in New Jersey with house prices in the northern part of the state running between $500,000 and $600,000 a year and property taxes running $10,000 to $20,000 a year, it's not a lot of money. I mean, you better have a good credit score and you better have a lot of money for down payment when you apply for that mortgage, because otherwise it's a close call. But nonetheless, that is the call that's going to be made here. And if it does go that way, high-income earners, people earning over $250,000 a year, could see their federal tax bill go up by anywhere between $20,000 and $150,000, depending upon how much they earn. Right? You know, somebody earning $300,000 a year is probably looking at an additional $20,000 in taxes. If the tax cuts expire. That has an effect on whether you're going to trade up from an $800,000 to a $1.5 million house, because you really don't know what you have to spend. Plus, the conversation is maybe we need to do away with or limit or eliminate the mortgage interest deduction and the deduction for real estate taxes for people who earn over that amount as well. Right? I mean, that's all part of the conversation. I'm not taking a side on it, but it has an effect on luxury housing. Looking out to next year, I think this recovery continues. This is, I'm sorry if I'm going to disappoint some of you. I don't think that it matters who gets elected in November as to what happens in the economy over the next 6 months to 9 months. I don't think it matters a lot, because presidents don't have that kind of an immediate effect. As Bruce just said, it's a longer-term choice. And in the short term, I think that what plays out in January, February, March, regardless of what happens in November, is that the momentum that we've seen, which slow as it is, continues to roll forward into next year. I see the job creation continuing at a relatively modest rate. I see the commercial markets continuing to move sideways. Retail, office, and now warehousing is no longer on an upward trajectory. It's kind of trying to hold on to the gains it's realized. Multifamily housing is going to continue to soar. It is the largest part of new home construction permits and construction starts. And I see the single-family purchase market continuing to expand. Year to date in New Jersey, home purchase contracts in 2012 are up 24% year to date and accelerating, going at a faster pace with each passing month. That'll spill over into next year. And the foreclosure shadows will start to clear rapidly, because we'll be on pace to be eliminating somewhere between 2 and 3 million of them a year, with only somewhere between 2 to 4 million left to be dealt with. And no real new delinquencies occurring, because if you bought into a teaser rate, your interest rate is already reset. If you've gone back to work, your ability to make your payments are better. If your company that cut back on your hours is now going to extend your hours, you're less likely to fall behind. 2014 is the year when I really see robust growth here in the U.S. economy. By that point, we'll have put a lot of these problems behind us. Foreclosure will be out of the mix. And once foreclosure is out of the mix, credit frees up. Because right now, part of the reason, not the only reason, but part of the reason why lending is so difficult to come by is because regulators, and perhaps appropriately, I'm not really criticizing, but regulators have required banks that have non-performing loans to take the money they would normally be putting into the lending stream and to put it over here and sit it on the side just in case. They need to set aside reserves in case those loans never perform and need to be liquidated, and also in case some of your currently performing loans go bad for the first time. That's what the regulators do. They're looking to protect the safety and soundness of the system. And so once this problem passes, the money which is on the balance sheet in reserves comes back into operations. Once it's into operations, it needs to chase returns, right? It needs to find places to go that give it a return. So the bank earns money, more than they pay you on your interest rate. And where's that going to be? Into real estate loans, because that's where the returns are. Now, if you're paying your depositors less than 1% to hold their money, but you don't really hold it, right? You pay them 1% to be able to lend it somewhere else and get 6%. So once the delinquency clears out, the liquidity problems start to improve rapidly. The foreclosure crisis will be a distant memory, much easier lending standards. The bookends will make their move in 2014. That means that Gen Y will now start to feed into the home buying market, smaller house sizes, urban and inner ring suburbs. It's not only urban, it's going to be the inner ring suburbs. Baby boomers will start to downsize. Look for a mismatch there. More boomers selling 4,000 square foot houses on an acre and a half, 30 or 45 minutes from a job center, then there will be buyers looking to absorb those houses. So probably another correction there. And this is when we start to see ourselves emerge into a more normalized economy. Thank you for your attention. I'm flattered that I was able to hold your attention for that long through a fire drill as well. Yeah, if there's any questions, we'll take a couple. I know we're way behind schedule. If we can just wait for the microphone to reach you.
I have one question you didn't discuss is the farming crisis. And that's still a wild card out there as far as I'm concerned because of what's going on in Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri.
And specifically what, because there's many elements to the farming crisis.
But it's the drought, the food prices going up, you know, the scenarios there to create another sideline.
There are a number of dynamics that are playing out in the farming industry. Part of that is certainly product. Scarcity because of the effects of drought and how that passes through into prices. As we've searched for more efficient fuel in our vehicles, we've been taking more of things like corn and blending it into our fuels in order to be able to create those efficiencies. So there's that. At the same time, there is considerable discussion about eliminating some of the subsidies that have been paid to the farming communities for all these years, and the insurance programs that have been available to farmers because those are government funded. And so once again, we get into this both sides are right discussion. On the one hand, you have those who would say, government's got to get smaller. We need to reduce taxes. The only way to reduce taxes is to reduce what we spend. The way to reduce what we spend is to take a look at the subsidies we pay, and why should we be paying those subsidies? On the other side, the flip side of it is, yeah, but if you get a drought coupled with a financial crisis in farming because you're not paying subsidies and insurances and lending is not available, U.S. consumer could end up paying double what they pay for their food bills today. So it's a big problem. That problem will not even be addressed until a few years from now because right now we've got bigger fish to fry, I'm sorry to say. Get the mic.
Yes, I have a comment and a question. I thank you for your presentation, and hopefully we can hear from you at least once a year at our Jersey spring concert. The other question I have, given our time and the limitations of time, could you give us some indication if there were 2 or 3 things we ought to be looking at or reading on a daily or weekly basis?
Yeah. Certainly, access to information is the most important resource in the work that we do. Much of it is at no cost. For example, I make it a practice, I know this is going to sound a little painful, because I have files on my desk as well. Coming here and talking to you today, this is not my business. I've got files on my desk, and I have clients that need work, but I make it a practice to spend 1 hour of every day reading what's happening in key industries. I spend an hour a day. Statistically, the numbers on this are that if someone spends an hour a day reading on a topic, within 2 years, they become an expert on that topic. And the topic here would not be property valuation. The topic here would be on more macro types of issues in terms of what's happening with the economy. And just be careful about where you get your information from, because the news media is extremely polarized. So you need to, listen, if you're a conservative and you watch Fox News, which I'm not telling you that I'm a conservative, but I make sure that I watch Fox News, make sure that you balance it out, and make sure that you tune in CNN or NBC and hear that side of things as well. If you read stories online, make sure that you read both the conservative and more liberal points of view. I can tell you that the New York Times consistently takes a liberal point of view, and there's merit in that. I'm not criticizing them. You need to sort of balance yourself out. So I spend an hour a day, and there's ways to do it. You can do it when you're having your morning coffee. You could do it instead of watching a half hour of television at night. There's ways to get it done. It's so easy to get that information today. It'll be delivered right to your inbox. You can you can get the apps on your mobile phones. Fairly easy to get access to that. One of the really good ones is called HousingWire, and if you go to housingwire.com, they'll send you an update every single day into your inbox at no cost that will recap to you all the things that are happening in the economy and in the housing markets and in the commercial real estate markets as well that would be of relevance to you. There are other large organizations, real estate types of organizations like Marcus and Millichap, which has commercial brokerage offices in New Jersey here. If you sign up for their site, which is free, they'll send you statistical reports every quarter on what's happening in hotel, in housing, in the economy, in office buildings, in retail buildings. Other good ones to go to, which are very helpful, would be to go to the CoreLogic site and LPS sites. They put out regular reports that will keep you informed on a quarterly basis. And it only takes, because we're educated readers, you skim them. You fly through them after a while. It takes you no more than 30 seconds to get through an article and say, I'm going to save that, or I'm not going to. Every time I see something I like, I print it to PDF and save it in a folder. One other place that you should really be looking at is Moody's, Moody's.com. They have a commercial price index, which will tell you the price performance on selling price per square foot of all of the different sectors of the commercial real estate market. Now, admittedly, it's a national set of numbers, but it does create some context to be able to write a fuller report.